If you run a small business and you don't want more ideas, what you want is you want something that'll help work on your business or work for your business. So what happens is most of the people that I talk to that are business owners, they spend all of their time working in their business, but not on their business. Working on their business or in their business. Which one is it? It's the people that are doing work that don't pertain to making money. That's really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that if you're doing things like you're answering customer emails, you're chasing invoices, you're writing all of these quotes and proposals for people, you're posting marketing content, you're digging through all your emails every single day to find out like what you're doing, like what's going on in your business, and you're updating like spreadsheets and all this kind of stuff. So all of those things take a lot of time away from you for the day-to-day operations of having to be very strategic and go find business and go build your business. And so today we're going to talk about one of my favorite tools, and you probably already read the title. It is called Claude. So I love Claude. I'm Claude crazy. I'm going to talk about how it actually works for you. And it's not just a chat bot to use to just write content. You can do it to take a lot of work off your plate. And so let's get started.
The most real and relevant resource on AI and automation. AI Automation Alchemist Podcast. Sponsored by Grata Software.
All right, guys, Claude. So Claude, it's a doer, not a writer. What do I mean by that? So most people, what they do is they use tools like Claude, ChatGPT, all these things. Use them all as just writing content. You just take it to write content, which I'm going to show you some cool content that I've done with Claude. But the thing is, just drafting emails, making things sound nicer, summarizing documents and things like that, that does not move the needle in your business. Those are very simple little things that can be done that don't really take up that much time anyways. But the thing that Claude is very helpful with is that it allows you to have like these big wins in your business. And what I mean by that is it can take over whole tasks, not just write. It could pull information from multiple data sources. It can synthesize that information, and it can produce very amazing output. In fact, sometimes it can produce actual documents, produce websites, produce a whole bunch of things that you won't be able to do in most other programs, most other chatbots. And so that's the reason why I love Claude, right? And so when we talk about Claude tools, we're talking about Claude plus your business systems plus repeatable workflows. That's what we're talking about here today. So what's the problem here that we're trying to solve? So the problem is that there's a bunch of repeatable work that you're doing in your business. And that repeatable work is you're checking emails. You're trying to look at all the types of emails that you get from, people that are selling you something, work that you're doing, clients that are responding to you, all that kind of stuff. The other thing is context switching. Context switching is the hardest thing. And some of you guys who are entrepreneurs, business owners, you guys know this, is you have to bounce between multiple things, between email, calendar, CRM, QuickBooks, Google Drive, customers, doing the actual work, depending on the kind of business you're in, or you're out there networking or you're talking to customers and you're gathering, information or whatever. And then you come back to the office and you have a total context switch. And the problem is when you're doing all that stuff, every switch costs you a lot of time, energy, and a lot of money because it's interrupting this thing called flow state. And so flow state, I'll have a whole nother podcast that I'll talk about flow state. I'm in the development world. I own a software engineering company, a consultancy company that does AI consulting for people. And I have developers, engineers that when they're locked in, they're in this thing called a flow state. And it's the same thing when you're a business owner. When you're locked in and you're working, you're in a flow state. And the thing is, you also have a tendency to make mistakes when you break that flow state. Someone takes you out of that concept that you're working on, and then now you're breaking things left and right. And so that's the reason why a lot of these tools are very useful for you. So again, Claude has a bunch of tools that could take very repeatable steps, right, that you do on a day-to-day basis, and you can actually delegate it, all right, through an agentic system or just using the chatbot in a certain way. There's 3 ways that Claude can help your business, and I want to talk about those 3 ways right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the 3 ways, and then I'm going to show you some examples of how I use Claude. I'm actually going to show you the interface and how it works. And then I'm going to show you some examples of how I use it. And maybe that'll help you understand how you could use it in order to save yourself time, energy, and money. If you sell a service or a product, and what happens is you're getting the same message every day. How much is your product? Can you get it done by a certain day? What's included in the service or what's included in the product? All those kind of things. What's a return policy? How you can send an invoice? Like all those questions are things that normally you would answer manually. You'd respond back through email, through chat, or whatever you want to use, or whatever you use for your form of communication. But a better way to handle the situation is you can use a system like Claude that helps you respond faster with more consistent responses to those people. You can actually tie it into some other integrations that allow it to actually respond on your behalf, their way saving you a lot of time. So what does that look like in practice? You give Claude, let's say, your pricing sheet or your policies or your service packages and a few examples of your tone, how you speak. And then it takes that information when it gets the input of the question, it synthesizes that information and then responds back. And then all you have to do is review to send, which is I would always recommend. There are some systems, and you guys have probably already heard on the news, this thing called ClaudeBot. So ClaudeBot, which has nothing to do with Claude, it's actually now called OpenClaw, or I guess they gave it a third name now because they're trying to separate it from Claude because Claude threatened to sue. But it's a system, it's an agentic system that basically allows you to integrate all of these external agents that work with Claude and other tools like ChatGPT and stuff like that, so that it can do what I'm just saying right now. You provide Claude all of this information about you, your product lines, your prices, and all that stuff, and then you can use a system like ClaudeBot that can come in and take a question from an external source, whether it be a chat bot, a phone call, or whatever the case may be, and then it can use your Claude in order to get the right information, synthesize it, send it back to your customer. Therefore, you free yourself up time to have to answer customer questions. It's a really cool thing. OpenClaw still is in infancy stage. It just came out recently. Don't give it all your information. That's going to be the one caveat I'm going to tell you. You got to protect your information. Don't go crazy on that thing. And so again, you could give it scope, invoice descriptions, you could give follow-up reminders, you do all of that stuff. And that's kind of like a level 1 thing, right? In fact, it's going to be super simple to implement. The other thing is, number 2, is that a lot of owners operate off of vibes. And what I'm saying about that is that a lot of times, and I see this all the time, I deal with entrepreneurs all the time in my business. And I'll ask them very pertinent questions like, what's your current revenue? What's your current cost per customer? All of these different marketing terms, I'll ask them these questions, and they literally look at me with a blank face because they haven't really understood all of those different operational KPIs, we call it, key performance indicators. And so the thing is, because they operate that way, they need other systems in place like dashboards and things like that to be able to provide them the information they need to make smart decisions for their business. Now, the old way we used to do this, you have to open up a whole bunch of apps, right? Like let's say you have to open up your Facebook ads app or your Google ads app. You have to open up analytics, Google Analytics, if you want to see the traffic on your website. So there's all these things you have to open up. The cool thing with using a tool like Claude is that you can now combine all of that information, synthesize that into one dashboard. Claude will take that input. It creates a simple weekly update that you can read in 2 minutes that'll provide you all the information that you need. So for instance, a perfect example of this is you come in like on a Monday and then you tell Claude, go ahead and provide me what is the update. What have we been doing for the last week? And it can synthesize information and give you that final output without you having to go out and look at all these different dashboards. We can look at weekly sales numbers, the appointments that you have for the week. We can look at open estimates, proposals, any types of orders that have already come through, top customer issues. So all of those things that you would normally have to go out to different dashboards and software in order to go find, you can get all that stuff basically handed to you inside of Claude. And that's really where it becomes a really good operational assistant because it doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to give you, like, for instance, mine looks like almost like DOS. I don't know if you guys remember that. DOS back when Windows first started, everything was command line DOS. If you're so young that you don't understand what I'm talking about, think of Terminal. If you're on a Mac, think of Terminal, or if you're on a PC, think of the latest terminal that's on, or command line that's there. It's very similar. Like it used to look like that. Like I used to get my reports like in that type of font and text. It doesn't have to be flashy. Now, obviously, Claude's going to make it look a lot nicer because it's later technology. It's going to make it look nice. And the great thing about Claude, and I'm just to add this to it, is the fact that when it does pull that information, it can actually give you a real dashboard that has some really cool charts and graphs because it has a built-in tooling that allows it to build things for you, like build real pages. And so I'll show you how some of that stuff works. It's really badass, actually. And then the third thing I'm going to talk about here is how, like most businesses, when they're marketing, a lot of times the failure of the marketing is because they're too busy. You sit there, you market for your business. If you do, you understand that you're selling, but you're also doing. And so you don't have much time for the marketing. So you try to find other people that help market. And you're just too busy for it. And it's inconsistent. And so Claude can help you turn all that stuff into one consistent message to the public, right? It could give you customer questions that are out there, common mistakes that people are having with your product or service. It could tell you new product arrivals, things like that. You can dump a bunch of photos, descriptions, all that stuff into Claude. And then it can give you like short Instagram captions, long Facebook posts, a Google business profile updates, a lot of these things. And again, you would need to approve all this stuff once it's done, but at least what it does is it does most of the legwork for you. So when you are trying to do things in marketing, it can build all the content for you. You don't have to sit there and build it yourself. And I'm going to show you because I actually use Claude very religiously for marketing content. It's freaking amazing. And so again, when people talk about Claude tools, right, don't think of it as it's just like, doing all this work for you. It's not agentic. It has some agentic features, which means it'll do some of the work for you. But the reality is, it's more of like a checklist of what Claude can do for you. It can run all these different things. And then you can go into the more advanced features where it actually will do some of the work for you using that. Basically, it has like computer control where it can actually control your computer and do things for you and all that kind of stuff. And again, it'll allow formats of all different types of outputs, whether you want emails, quotes, summaries, rules, policies, all that kind of stuff. It could build all of that for you. So the computer use is basically where Claude it can look on your actual screen and provide you step-by-step instructions on how to do things, which is funny because Google has a feature like that too, which is pretty cool. And so the key here though, is anything that you use in Claude or anything that you do in Claude, you want to instill guardrails and human reviews. It's one thing that I tell everyone with every single tool out there that has artificial intelligence, agents, or anything like that. You want to be able to actually see what it's doing. You want to review what it's doing. You don't want to go YOLO mode. There's another tool out there that we use in the development world where it had, when they first launched the product, they had a thing called YOLO mode. You only live once. And what it meant was you don't have to review what the agent did. You just basically run and it does whatever it wants to do. And when it gets done, it gets done once it completes all the tasks that you give it. The problem is that the thing was going off the rails and using up a whole bunch of tokens. And we will talk about tokens. And it used a whole bunch of tokens. Instead of paying the $20 a month, you end up paying several $100s a month because it just went crazy and used up a whole bunch of tokens, did a bunch of tasks. Actually, let me tell you a quick story. The other day, I built an agentic system for myself, and I just wanted to test it to see how crazy these agents can get. Now, mind you, mine wasn't using ClaudeBot or any one of these other systems. I built a very custom system. That's what I do for companies. I build custom AI solutions for businesses. Me and my team, we do that. And so I was just testing this theory about what happens if I build this whole complex agent system, and then all I asked it is, what time is it? And you'd be so shocked. I asked it what time it was, and it took about 2 minutes for it to respond. And it gave me a date and time of like June 15th of 2024. And we're in 2026, in February 2026. And it gave me that date. I looked at the logs because I was very intrigued. How did it come up with this? I looked at the conversation. So the two agents that were running in parallel were actually arguing with each other about what date and time it was. And I was like, holy dude, this is crazy. Like, these agents were just complaining to each other about what time it was and actually telling the other one, you're wrong. I think it's this time because of XYZ. Like, it was having a total argument. It was really crazy. But anyways, that's what happens when agents, you just give them freely and to do whatever they want without actually having any guardrails or having any review processes. So that's one thing I always recommend when you use Claude or any other system. Always have some type of review in some way of you can monitor and manage what's going on with the system. More specifically, because if you don't do that and you give it too much information, you may give it customer data, you may give it information about finances, you may give it information, or there might be information on your computer that it gives it that information. It'll know what bank you bank at, what account numbers you have, like all that kind of stuff. And even though it's not there to manipulate you into getting your information to try to steal your stuff, it just based on what the task at hand is, it might use that information. So for instance, people that are using OpenClaw, there's already been reports of OpenClaw purchasing items for the person based on the task that it gave it, and spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on little things. Like, for instance, training. Like, one guy, it went out and it bought $200 worth of training because in its task load, it was told to learn this specific skill. And it said, well, I don't know this skill, so I want to learn this skill. So it used the guy's credit card to purchase the training so that it can learn that skill. But it never really learned the skill because it bought a training, but it can't see the training without any command. It needs commands to understand what that training was in order to pull that into its own thing. Anyways, I'm going off the rails, but you know what I'm saying. All right. So the thing is that most people, what they do is they try and start to automate something huge. They always try, like for instance, all these Claude people or these open Claude people are trying to do these huge automations and using artificial intelligence agents. And it's the same thing what happens when people use Claude or use OpenAI's, ChatGPT. They always want to do something extremely big. The reality is you want to start extremely small. You want to start something that is very frequent, very predictable. It's a low risk, and it's something that's pretty much annoying to your everyday life, like checking your email, responding to, complaints, things that you just don't want to deal with. You can easily give it those tasks. All right. So some of the best starters, for a small business to get started with is like customer frequently asked questions, quotes, proposals. In fact, perfect example, I have a whole system that I'm using ChatGPT and Claude. I'm using both of them. And what it does is it goes and it pulls all of the current government contracts that are available that are in our space. And I use ChatGPT to read the contract or the request for proposal. And then I have it send it to Claude and have Claude synthesize what a good response is and what kind of a proposal that we need in order to win the contract. And I have them speaking to each other. And so what it does, I don't have to go do it. So every day at 8:00 in the morning, I have a task that runs and it goes and it grabs anything that shows up in sam.gov, which is the system where there's all these government contracts and requests for proposals are, and it goes and grabs that information, and then it synthesizes what that proposal is. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not a legal guy, and I can't read some of the legal jargon and all the stuff that's on those. And sometimes I don't even know what the proposal is actually asking when it comes to requirements. And so that's why I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to use AI to do that. So ChatGPT will synthesize that for me. It'll create what the proposal requires to win. I even have in there where it gives me what are the key performances that we need to accomplish in order for us to win this contract and what we need to say in our proposal. And then I have it send it to Claude and have Claude write out the full proposal and then create any graphics or anything that we need in order to make it look nice and pretty so that I can finally review it, export as a PDF, and then potentially apply for or go after that request for proposal. Plus, it's giving me instructions on certain things I need to do. The other day, I had a legal issue that I had to take care of, and I went into Claude and I had Claude write me out a motion to extend time before I needed to respond to this one legal issue. And so I just had Claude write that out for me. I actually submitted it. It gave me the exact instructions on how to go to the actual courthouse site, how to submit the motion, the step-by-step process. It was all done electronically, and I was approved the next day. So my motion, I'm not an attorney, my motion was approved the next day. Now, again, I'm not giving any legal advice. I'm not saying you should go do that. You should go contact an attorney if you're dealing with a legal issue. You should do that. But I did that because I had no time. By the time I went and I tried to contact attorneys, I couldn't find the right attorney, so I had to make a decision myself, and I went ahead and I did it. And I used Claude to help me through that. Invoice follow-ups, weekly updates, most of the stuff that you would do on a day-to-day basis in your business, this is a good tool to do those things. Simple rule. All right. Simple rule here. Simple rule is do not let Claude make the final decisions. Do not let it do the final send. Make sure you always check for, whether if it's following, your brand, if it's following your verbs or your verbiage, how you speak, all that kind of stuff. You can let it draft the information for you, but please, please, please always review and approve. Do not let it do things for you. And so basically that's like, Claude in a nutshell. And so now I'm going to go into the actual interface and I'm going to show you how Claude looks like. And we're going to go through it and I'm going to show you some of the things that I've done with it. As in the recording of this video, Claude has just released their latest model, which is Sonnet 4.6. I've been using Sonnet 4.5. I'm an extreme fan of Sonnet 4.5, the thinking model. In fact, from a programming perspective, I use a tool called Cursor that is our development environment. So software allows us to develop. It manages the files, all the things that we need in order to be able to develop software. And the great thing about it is that it has a built-in agent, and that agent, you can request what kind of model you want to use. And I stick with the 4.5 Sonnet. I've done that for this whole year. I've been using 4.5 Sonnet, even though they've released Opus and and now they've released 4.6. Now they're forcing people into the 4.6, and that started today. So again, I'm going to share my screen. All right. So this is Claude. This is the interface. So I have a paid account, $20 a month account. I don't know what they call it. Actually, let me click on Gift Claude and see what it says. So I have the Pro version. All right. It says here there's an option for Max, which is 5 times. So this is funny. The way they do pricing models is they say 5 times and they say 20 times max. The one thing about almost every AI system is their pricing models are so obscure. It's not definitive. It's not, you have, like when we got Cursor, which is a whole nother product, when they originally launched, they said for this price, you get 200 requests. It didn't tell us tokens. It just said 200 requests. They realized real quick that that was useless because what happens is people were making 200 requests, but they were using millions and millions of tokens, which is actually what they get charged off of from these systems, Claude, OpenAI, all these things. So they switched their pricing model. So the systems here, Claude, ChatGPT, they all use tokenization models. However, they say that you use, like Pro version, you get so many tokens per session. But then it says max, you get 5 times that. What does that actually mean? Because sometimes if you use it and you go 5 times over, do you pay extra after? So there's still questioning. So there's still a lot of question about the pricing models. And I'm sure they'll nail that down. But just to show you that I clicked on the gift of Claude, give the gift of Claude, so you can see the pricing models. They have a max, which is 20 times. Pros, $120 for 6 months. I'm just going to put 1 month. So I pay $20 a month. For max, it's $100 a month, and then it's $200 a month for max 20 times. All right. And then you can go to their website if you want to see what the different benefit is, but that's basically that. All right. So what I always show people first is I want to show you the settings, because you want to go to settings. You want to make sure everything's set up right. So if I go to settings here, which this is a lot simpler, OpenAI, if you watch my previous episode, when I did OpenAI, ChatGPT, the settings are like confusing. There's like settings and then there's profiles. But here, this is straight up settings. Everything's on settings. So here's your general settings, personal preferences. So what I like about Claude is that it gives you a lot more features when it comes to like customizing. And so when you put in your preferences here, it actually will use that as its customization when it's doing any type of work for you. It has appearance options and all this kind of stuff, voice chatting. I don't tweak those much, but they're there. Account. So this is obviously how you access your account. It's all the different active sessions that I currently have going on. As you can see, I use it religiously all over the place, wherever I go. And so it shows here that I literally am in multiple systems simultaneously. You have your privacy here. So now privacy settings are super important when it comes to any chat system. And it's because you want to make sure a couple things. Number one, that everything's protected, that you're not giving away information that's your personal private data. That's the first thing. The second thing is how you manage the memory. That is one of the most important parts, because for two different peoples, there's two different results. So if you're a person that's just using the system for yourself, like you're not going to do any other research except for only for what you're doing, like a very specific topic, and you're staying in that topic forever, then what you want to do is you want to be able to spread that memory across all your different chats. However, I do a lot of work for a lot of different people, and I use my chat tools for different projects, different clients, different backgrounds. And so I don't like to share amongst all different chats. I only want to focus on the memory on that specific chat at that moment and everything that's in that specific chat. So that's the difference between me and probably a lot of people that use Claude. So what I'm talking about here is memory preference. If I hit manage on memory preference, you'll see it says artifacts. We definitely want artifacts, because artifacts is how you create documents, PDF files, images, websites, all that stuff. AI powered artifacts. Yes, we want that. Code execution and file creation. That's the one that I'm talking about. If I want to create a PDF file, it'll do that. And then here's the memory. See how it says search? Let me highlight that. So it says search and reference chats. Allow Claude to search for relevant details in past chats. I have mine turned off. And generate memory from chat history. I have mine turned off, again, because I don't want it to infiltrate what I'm currently using in my system. Skills. This is actually pretty amazing. You can add skills to Claude. I don't have a skill on here, but if, let's say, I click on add, I can write skill instructions. Or I can upload a PDF, or sorry, not PDF, a zip, or an MD file, which is a markdown file. And then I can have Claude create a skill. Now, what a skill really is like, for instance, I'll use an example. I wrote those 2 agents that I was telling you about. The language I use is called LangChain. So when I'm using LangChain, I want to make sure that my system actually has the knowledge and experience of LangChain. So what I do is I upload the documentation of LangChain as a skill, and I tell it to learn that skill. So what happens is every time I go into the chat and I say, build me this in LangChain or do this for me in LangChain, it will know to reference the documentation for anything that has to do with LangChain, therefore keeping on topic, making sure it's delivering the right results. This is the system called RAG, by the way, which is Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's built in. If you watch my episode on how LLMs work, that's what this is doing. It's basically, and before it goes and then hits the neural network in the back end of the large language model, it goes and it finds all of the information that pertains, the context of what you're doing, and then it applies it with your prompt. And therefore, it knows that it always stays within context of what it's supposed to do. And so that's what this is for. If you give it a skill, it'll use that skill in what it's doing. When you go to privacy, you'll see here it says manage memory preferences. Export data. You can export any chat that you've done inside of Claude. You could also manage share chats, how you share chats with other people. So here I have several chats that I've shared with other people, and I can unshare them if I want to. So billing, that's just what plan you have, all that kind of stuff. Usage. So you'll see current session. I have 0% usage because I haven't done anything yet. Weekly limits. I think it refreshed already, so I don't have any weekly limits right now. But as you use it, you'll see this meter, and you want to follow this because this determines, depending on the plan that you have, it determines whether you've met all of your limits, and if you have, it's going to start charging you extra tokens for extra token usage. Capabilities, artifacts, we already have that. Memory, which is weird because that was in privacy too. Connectors. So this is where you can connect different tools to your Claude. So I have my Gmail connected, I have Google Calendar, and I have Google Drive. The reason why is because if I decide I want to use the agent feature to be able to do something for me, or the computer use do something for me, it already has my credentials and everything to go to my email, go to my Google Calendar, go to my Google Drive. So therefore, I can have it look through my emails, check stuff, send email messages on my behalf, all that kind of stuff. So, and then Claude Code is a whole different ballgame. If you're someone that's interested in vibe coding, which is building your own apps, your own tools, you can use Claude Code to help do that. That's one of the reasons why I said earlier that Claude does a lot more than just chat. Claude is a full-blown workflow system. In fact, they just added a new feature that is, it actually has the term work in it. And I'll show you in a second, where now it does a lot more for you than just chat. And so Claude Code is your way. If you want to turn that on and you want to start using Claude Code, and I think if on the left-hand side over here, you'll see it says code. What it lets you do is it lets you build websites or lets you build apps, lets you build all that kind of stuff. I could probably show you an example. I don't know how I'll do something simple. And then, and by the way, if you're listening to this podcast, I do recommend you watch the video. You go watch the video later. If you're following along of what I'm saying and you can kind of visualize, it's great. But if not, you can definitely go back and watch the video, and it's going to be on YouTube. Apple podcast is publishing video as well with the audio podcast. And then here it says install instructions, so you can install Claude Code and do all the stuff. But I'm not going to do Claude Code right now in here. All right, so that's basically your settings. So over here to the left, on the bottom, right above your name, if you click on that, this is where Claude could do a lot more. So this is where Claude could do your work for you on many occasions. So right here it says download for Windows, because I'm on a Windows machine. If you're on a Mac, so it'll say download for Mac. And what that means is you're giving it permission to actually control your computer. Same thing for mobile devices. You have the ability to download for the app for multiple mobile devices. And you'll see here it says Claude Code. It has apps for Claude Code. So Terminal, which is the same thing as your command line on Windows, Terminal on Mac. If you're on Linux, you're probably using a terminal as well. So what that does, it'll install a terminal that it can control. Same thing with VS Code, which is integrated development environment for software engineers and developers. You can download a VS Code attachment from Claude, so Claude can actually work with your VS Code. Same thing with desktop app. JetBrains is another development environment tool that you can download. Slack. Some of you probably use Slack already if you're working at a company that uses Slack, or if you're in your own business using Slack. Like we use Slack in our business. This allows you to be able to control Slack, or allows Claude to be able to control Slack as well. You can have Claude control your Microsoft Office, and then obviously your Chrome, which is it can control that as well to do stuff for you. And that's, again, this is more of like the computer use part of it, and which again I haven't dabbled into it because I build my own agentic systems that do it, but I just wanted to show you that part. All right, so on the top left you have this thing called Open Sidebar. I'm going to open the sidebar real quick. Now in that open sidebar you have new chat, which is obviously obvious. If I click on that, I can start a new chat. You have your search features. You can search all your previous chats. Actually, you see that legal suit right there. Boom. And then you have chats, which is a list of all of your chats here in the middle. Don't worry about templates because that is actually a third-party tool that is turned on. That's touching that. That's not really there. Projects. Projects is very similar to when I created my GPTs on OpenAI's ChatGPT. That's what projects is very similar. So you create a new project, you fill it in with a whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of context, and then you create the prompts. And every time you create a prompt, it saves that prompt under that whole project. And so I have a project here that I could show you, the soap opera sequence email. So soap opera sequence email is essentially a framework of creating emails, outbound, cold emails when you're going after new clients. And so what I do is when I do these cold emails, I use Claude to build out my email sequences. And you'll see on the screen, I've built out not just for myself, but I built it out for a company called National Entrepreneur Center. I, build it out for a donor engagement thing. So different things. And so what I did is I have a set of instructions, and I'll click on the instructions here. And basically, I provided it information, 5 email storytelling used for nurturing leads and building strong relationships. And so I provided all this information. And by the way, I wrote all of the stuff that you see here on the screen is stuff that I've pulled together from experts in, email campaigns that have all these different strategies and things like that. So what I did is I synthesized using ChatGPT or Claude. I synthesized this information, put it into the instructions. And so now every time I create a prompt or I say, I need this soap opera sequence for this specific company, here's all the company information and all that kind of stuff, it will generate the emails for me. So what I did is I popped in essentially an email idea that I had with the first email. And then what I ended up doing is just hit go. And because it's using all the information I gave it, it basically is telling me, okay, you have a solid framework combining, the Russell Brunson soap opera sequence. So this is one of the guys that I follow. I'm actually in his mastermind. And so I listen to a lot of what he says, and I apply a lot of he's an amazing marketer, and I apply a lot of things that he talks about. And so it's essentially leveraging, his teachings that he's taught me. I put my notes and stuff in there, and it starts creating the soap opera sequence based on what those teachings are and based on what it is that I'm selling. And so all of that's in that first email. The first email is I'm literally showing what the sale is, and then it's going ahead and it's writing out a whole sequence for me. And what I do is I basically just copy and paste this into my whatever email system that I'm using. However, with Claude, with the computer use, you could essentially take this and automatically push it to another tool that sends out the emails without you having to touch it. So every time you do a chat and you want to create content, you can create what's called artifacts. And when it creates those artifacts, it saves it in the artifacts section. So there's an inspirational side. So this is people that have done artifacts using Claude, right? So you can leverage some of that stuff for your own personal use, or you can go to your artifacts, which I have a whole bunch of artifacts I've created over the last, 6 to 8 months, probably 10 months. In fact, there's one of my favorite artifacts that I just created recently. I'm rebuilding my website for my Digital Strike brand, and I created this artifact simply just through prompting. And by the way, this is not Claude code. This is just idea generation for me, where I gave it information and then it had to build me a website. And so I'll run it. And by the way, JSX is a JavaScript. It's a JavaScript technology. React uses it a lot, and so a lot of what Claude does is it'll write websites and stuff in React using JSX. But I would tell it sometimes like not to do that, because unless you're a programmer, you won't know how to take it from here and then apply it for yourself. So if I really wanted to just make this super simple and not do the JSX, I would just say convert this to an HTML and CSS and basic JavaScript, not a framework JavaScript or a library JavaScript, like a basic JavaScript. All right. So you can see here on the screen. So I have a design. Now, obviously not fully, decked out with images and videos, but it gives me the placeholder. So this actually is a background video. And then it has the different sections, and it's writing the copy, by the way. So all this copy here is written by Claude. It's all based on information I gave it and prepared it. This is the program that we offer in the Digital Strike program. It's a $497 program. And then here's the way that people can get instant access to it, all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of like a landing page / website, but I built this all using Claude, literally just by giving it information. And then I even gave it samples of like certain sites that I liked, and it synthesized that and created this site for me. And when you put all that information, by the way, on the top here, if I click on this, this is the content. So here's a highly detailed modular prompt designed to yada, yada, yada. This prompt, by the way, I had AI create me the prompt. On one of my other episodes in the previous episodes, I've actually talked about doing that. I think it's in the ChatGPT one, how you can literally ask the AI to actually create the prompt by prompting it to create the prompt and giving it what the parameters are of that prompt. And then it'll automatically build all that for you. I copied, pasted that back into Claude and said, go ahead and build me this. And it built me that. So that's artifacts. And then code is exactly what we just talked about earlier. It's be able to write applications and all of that stuff using Claude. Now you see here when I click on it, it says connect to GitHub. So this is my biggest contention with using Claude Code, which is why I don't use it, is because when you're building software, you use GitHub as to store your code, your repository. And the thing is, when you use GitHub, when you're using Claude Code, it's actively always using GitHub. Now, normally when we write code, what we do is we create our code. And then even if we're using AI to write code, like if we're using Claude or whatever, it's building it on our local machine. And then when we're done with the specific segments of our code, we'll upload it to GitHub as a version. So this is like version 1, and then we'll upload the next one to version 2, and so on and so forth. And it gives us much more control over the code itself. Now, the other day, GitHub was down for 2 days. It was like intermittent. So all these vibe coders who were using these tools like Claude Code and some other tools that are out there, they couldn't even do anything. They couldn't work on their site. Their site was down. Everything was down because this system uses GitHub in real time. It's constantly updating with GitHub in real time. But the way it works is you basically write a prompt and you tell it what you want. There's videos out there. What people have done is they've taken, let's say, Netflix, and they'll go to Claude or they'll go to OpenAI's ChatGPT and they'll give it the link to Netflix and they'll say, analyze this site and provide full documentation of design, style, programming, all that stuff as a requirements document. And then what happens is it writes all that stuff out, and then they basically copy and paste that into Claude Code. And Claude Code will now build that version. It looks just like Netflix. It has a lot of the same features, all that kind of stuff. And they'll use Claude Code in that realm. And that will be the first prompt. Once you get that first prompt done, then every prompt after that is you're tweaking and making things better. But the other pet peeve that I do have with Claude Code, for like at least the people that I know that use Claude Code and what they've told me, is the fact that because you're doing line by line prompting, if it messes up, you have to basically revert back to the previous prompt and then reprompt it again, which sometimes that could produce issues where it removes certain things that it shouldn't have removed, or it adds things that it shouldn't have added. And so those are all things that in our development environments, we have total control as developers of that. We see the mistake, we could stop it from continuing the mistake, and then we could fix, in real time and not have to worry about it publishing, and then we have to go back and get it again. All right, so what I was talking about is this screen right here. It says Claude Code with Claude Code, and you can connect to GitHub right here. If I click on here, it's going to take me over to GitHub. I already have a GitHub account. That's my Grata LLC GitHub account. And I can authorize Claude, but I'm not going to do that because I do not want it attached to that account. That account is where I have so many clients on there. I've worked with over 70 clients over the last 10 years, over 250 projects. And so I definitely don't want Claude to have access to all my projects and all of my clients' code. Just my personal thing, and that's it. All right, cool. All right, and then everything down here on the screen, let me go back. I'm on the left-hand side. So everything else you see down here is all recent, all your history of all the different chats that you've done over time and stuff like that. All right, so there's that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new chat. And in this new chat, you'll see here in the chat window, you have a bunch of options. So the plus sign here is where you can use the, add files, photos, take screenshots, add to projects, add from Google Drive. You also have the option of researching. If you want to do deep research, you just click on that. Web search, you definitely want to have web search on, especially if you're going to make a request or write anything that has to do with other websites. Styling, I don't touch that much, but it's definitely there to make different style uses. So you could do learning responses, concise, explanatory, formal. I just use normal, and then connectors. Here again, you could attach other tools to it to be able to get what you want for what you're doing. So the first things first. So I'm going to use the chat bot real quick. Let's see what I could show you. All right. So first things first, I want to show you, let me turn on deep research. And I'm going to say, so let's say you're in your business and you're like, okay, well, I want some type of a workflow. This is a great thing about tools like this, right? If you have an idea of a workflow. So first of all, first rule, and I always forget to do this when I talk to people, is you want to make sure that the first thing you say is, what is its job? Like, what is its task? The reason why is because inside of the transformer in the large language model, you want it to make sure it stays in context. So in order to make it stay in context, you have to give it a task and you got to give it a role. That role, it remembers that everything it does from there on out, it needs to follow that role, be related to that role. But that role has to be descriptive. You can't just say, as a developer or as a manager, you need to be very descriptive. So in this case, I'm going to say you are a product designer and you are responsible for developing an agentic workflow using Claude that checks emails, filters out the important ones from the not important ones, and provides a summary to me on what emails I need to respond to and why. Okay, now I type that in. Sounds good. I probably will get good results. But this is the thing. I'm going to ask it to write the prompt for this because I know there's some things I'm missing. So, okay, write the prompt for the task above. Okay. And I'll even say here, I'll put a little bracket and I'll say prompt so that I'm basically telling the system that this is the real prompt. All the stuff up top is a description. All right. I can even take it one step further. Okay. Task description, because the one thing about the way large language models work, again, it's context, it's relative context. So I said write the prompt for the task above. If I say task description, it'll know that task equals task, and that's the task that I want to talk about. All right. So over here, you have your different models. Opus 4.6, which is actually really cool. Opus 4.6 does really great artifacts, but you also have Sonnet 4.6, which is more of like your general purpose use. So I'm going to use Sonnet 4.6, and I'm going to use extended thinking. I always use extended thinking. I like the fact it's not really thinking. What it's doing is it's verifying that what it's supposed to be doing, it's doing its job, and it'll continue working until it gets the job done. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that, and so now I'm going to let it go crazy. So system prompt. So system prompts are important. System prompt is the main framework. So whenever you hear system prompt, that is the main framework it needs to follow. The user prompt is the one that you would write inside the chatbot. So what it's doing is it's basically writing a system prompt for us that has all the information that we need. So see how it's speaking? It's speaking like what I told you. It says you're an intelligent email triage assistant. So it's giving it a role. Your job is to review the user's inbox, identify emails that require their attention, and deliver a clear, prioritized summary so they can act quickly and confidently. It's giving it its whole role. It's its purpose. It needs that because that's how it makes sure everything stays relevant to that. Right? The workflow is to fetch emails, retrieve all unread or recent emails from the inbox within the last 24, 48 hours. The reason why it's doing that, because if you don't do that, it'll search through every email. My inbox has like 2,000 unreads. So it'll go through all 2,000. You don't want to do that. It's going to bog down the system. You want it to be very precise, very specific. Classify each email with the following criteria: action required, emails that need a direct response, a decision, or a task to be completed. FYI, informational, low priority, ignore, summarize action required emails, so on and so forth. The great thing about it is that sometimes it'll give direction as far as instructions on exactly how to do it. So it gives it important constraints. Very good. So tone is concise, professional, direct, avoid over-explaining. The user's time is valuable. And then important constraints is never fabricate email content. These are the kind of things that what guardrails are made out of. So you give it constraints so that it doesn't go outside those boundaries. So that's important. And then right here, a few things that may want to customize before deploying this is a time. So this is the instruction to me. Before I take this and copy paste it, right? It says few things that you may want to customize before deploying this. Time window, specify last 24 hours since last login or unread only, depending on how often the workflow runs. Priority senders, you can add a rule that always flags emails from boss name or key client at action required regardless of content. And then output format, if you want to summarize delivered via Slack, small digest, or another channel, add that instruction in there. Obviously, if we add Slack as a tool, then we'll know to do that. So now this is the thing. I just did this, but there's the prompt. So how do I deploy this prompt and have it use my Gmail connection? Gmail connection to see it work. I want to test this. I want to use it for real, right? Like right now. So it wrote me everything, but I want to make sure, okay, how do I use this? Because if I just copy and paste this, will it just do it? Or, what issues am I going to run into? Right. So there you go. So great news. You're already most of the way there. It says Claude AI, your Gmail is already connected. Awesome. It told me that. So use it directly in Claude AI. Simplest, just paste the system prompt at the start of a new conversation, following by a trigger like run the email triage workflow from my inbox from the last 24 hours. Claude will use a Gmail connection to fetch, classify, and summarize your emails on the spot. You can do this manually whenever you run. Okay, so we could do this manually. Right? It also says I can create a project. It also says I can automate via API. So if you haven't heard of an API, I've talked about APIs for ChatGPT. So Claude has APIs too. In fact, I have access to the API, and I have I think $10 like up there already. So you can use the API to be able to go get to use Anthropic's API to automate this. So I could create an agent. Let's say if you're using OpenClaw, I can have an agent in OpenClaw actually do the request through the API and do all this information, do all this work through Anthropic's API. Okay, but I'm going to do the manual way, the one that says option 1. All right. And I'm going to copy this thing where it says run the last 24 hours. Well, actually, first I need to copy the prompt. So here it is. I'm going to copy this whole prompt. And by the way, there's 2 ways of copying. There's a little copy option. There's a copy option at the bottom of every chat, of every response. However, sometimes it copies it as markdown because what you're seeing on the screen looks like an HTML response, but it's actually markdown, which is a type of syntax that allows you to quickly write HTML pages and PDF files, things like that. And so it has it in markdown. So if you copy and you paste it somewhere else, you'll see the markdown, not the actual bullet points and all that kind of stuff. And I want to make sure it looks just like the way I want it to. I'm going to create a new chat just like it says. I'm going to paste that in there. All right. And then I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. I'm going to say prompt. And then under the prompt, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy, see if it'll let me do it. All right, cool. So by the way, so what I did there, just that you saw that, I always, if you're on a Mac, you use, I think it's Apple, the Apple key. And if you're on a PC, it's the control key. If you control click or Apple click on any one of these, it'll open up that chat in another tab. The reason why I do that is because I haven't saved this yet. And if until I hit submit, it doesn't save it in memory. So it's not in memory. So if I jump back to this previous chat and then I go back to this chat after I copy the information, it's going to be empty and I have to recopy everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the other prompt because I want to copy that one liner that it says to copy, run this mail triage. Okay. And I will copy and I'll go back to the chat that's open. And under my prompt, I'm going to go ahead and paste this here. And I'm going to go ahead and hit submit and we'll see what happens. First time I'm having it use my Gmail. So let's find out. And I have, by the way, I have a crap ton of emails that came in today. So I wonder how that's going to be. All attempts to connect your inbox. Gmail isn't connected. Your Gmail account may not be linked to Claude yet. You can connect via settings, integrations, or tools connections. Authorization expired. Okay, so authorization is probably expired because I connected it a few days ago. So let me do this. Let me go to connectors, Gmail. So Gmail search. So I'll manage my connectors. And let me disconnect. And now let me reconnect. Okay, it's already got trust. All right, so it's reconnected. And now let me go back to that. Let me go back to the chat that did not work. And I'll say run triage again. Okay, so it connected. So that's all it was. It's just my connection expired because I set it up like a week ago, but I never actually used it. So now it's actually going through and it's checking the emails. So if you're watching, you're seeing it in real time. If you're listening, you're hearing my voice. Again, watch the video. Definitely, you will like it. It's going through it. Yeah, it's so cool because it's actually responding to exactly. So there it goes. Action required. All right, cool. So, and I'm going to read these to you live. I mean, why not, right? We're here. So action required. So this person, I have seen that email and it's basically an invitation to be part of someone's podcast. There is a DMARC report, which has something to do with my emails, school community notifications. I'm actively involved in several school communities, and so I have notifications there. Low priorities, Door, which is a social media app. Grant Cardone, I did a Grant Cardone. I was part of Grant Cardone's programs years ago. So anyways, so 1 email needs a response, 4 informational, and 6 can be ignored. And that's correct because this Sean Thornton, which is the podcast one, that's the one I do need to respond to because I know that because he's invited me on his podcast. So it actually says the ball may be in Sean's court, but if you haven't explicitly proposed a specific date, time, follow up with concrete, like that's great information. I submitted back saying I am available these specific days. And so it looks like it just didn't capture my send back, but it captured at least what the email was. Now think about that. I didn't read through, how many emails did it go through? This is today. It went through a total of 10, 11 emails that were unread for today. So I've had like 50 emails today. So if I just left it like untouched, it would have pulled a lot more information and then it would have provided me a summary of that. Now I did all this locally. I did all this, not locally per se, but I did this in my account, right? It's pulling in information, but it's not pulling in bank account information or anything. It's just pulling in a summary of that information from that, right? Now I do have my calendar connected. So I wonder if I could sit there and say, okay, and again, trusty assistant. Imagine you're talking to an intern. The intern just came back, says, oh, you have a few emails here, right? So can I say, okay, actually, no, I want to show you this. I want to show you artifacts. Okay, take the response and make a graphical interface that is easy to read and understand. And I'm just doing this for fun, by the way, just because we're here. Might as well give it a shot. All right. So now I'm having it create a graphical interface of the response that it did. I don't know if it'll do it, but we'll see. We're doing this live. I didn't practice this. I didn't rehearse this. I'm doing this as I'm recording this podcast right now. I'm doing this. So So you'll see if you look at the screen, if you're watching, you're seeing that it's actually creating the CSS right now for the HTML web page that it's creating that's going to have essentially charts or graphs or something. So the other responses happen really, really fast. Usually when it builds artifacts, it usually takes a little bit longer, but that's fine. What I'll do is I'll just stop the video here. I'll just pause the video here, and then I'll just bring it back once I'll bring it back when it's done. All right, so it's done. So look at the email triage that it created. It built it in HTML, which is awesome because that is you can download. You can easily download or convert to a PDF. So check this out. It says, "Good morning, Ray. Here's what needs your attention from the last 24 hours. 1 action required, 4 informal, 6 can ignore." So good morning, inbox triage, February 19th, 2026. Good morning, Ray. See, it even has my name. Nice. Here's what needs your attention last 24 hours. 1 action required, 4 informational, 6 can ignore. Then it says action required. Sean Thornton, Ray, hi, got an update and a content in course for you. So by the way, this is just someone that actually took one of my courses who's interested in now having me, join their podcast, get on their podcast. And it even says, why does it matter? It's a warm lead from someone who's followed your work since September, real relationship potential. All right. You guys see that. All right. So next step, send a specific date, time, calendar, booking, right? So it's telling me what to do. Isn't that cool? So Microsoft DMARC report. So these DMARC reports, I have so many systems that I use, email systems that I use, so many emails that I have. And it definitely bugs. I get these emails for all these DMARC things, but and if you know what DMARC is, it's basically a way to protect emails from phishing scams, stuff like that. So I have here school community. Let me zoom in on that. School community. Okay, one-to-many mastery. Okay, so this is like I said, school community that I'm part of. Actively digest some school groups you follow. New post from James Curran and Noel Russell. If you guys don't know who they are, James Curran, he's a certified funnel builder from ClickFunnels. He owns his own business, but he's a certified funnel builder with ClickFunnels. He's also part of the same mastermind that I attend. And then Noel Russell is a I Love AI community, and she's amazing. She speaks on how to be very ethical with artificial intelligence. She speaks to Fortune 500s, large businesses, enterprise businesses. She goes around the country, actually the world, and speaks on behalf of how to create AI to be more community based and also to not do bad things with AI. No response needed. Check when you have time. Okay, so this is one of the ones that was not a big deal. So then it actually shows me low priority, ignore. It shows me, so the same thing. So everything we just saw that was in the textual situation, we're seeing it in a nice interface. And by the way, see how this interface is dark and all this kind of stuff? All I have to do is just reply what I want to do with this artifact. So I could say change the background, holy cow, background to white, adjust font and style accordingly to go against the white background. I could say change the boxes to look more Web3, just little things like that. And again, I'll just pause and just show you, and you'll see the result. All right, so there you go. So now you see how this could work, how this could simplify your life, how you can do certain things with this. You can go even further. Like I said, you could go deep into this and you can create a full agent-based system. If I go to where to go before, so close that, go apps. So Cowork, again, this is like their agent thing. So you can go more agentic. But anyways, that's the basis of Claude Code that I just want to show you. And I hope you understand, again, it's all about taking the repetitive tasks, the things that you do on a day-to-day basis that's annoying, it takes up a lot of time, that is not beneficial for you when it comes to building your business, building your brand, going out and getting customers, going out and building strategies, business dev, all that kind of stuff. When it comes to building your business, you want to be able to focus more on that. And if you're someone that works at a job and you're not a business owner and you've just watched this whole thing and you're like, well, this doesn't really pertain to me. It does. I mean, think about the work that you can do for your job, or if you're freelancing or whatever, or contracting, all the things that you can do with just Claude by itself. Now, mind you, this is just one tool. Claude is a tool in itself, but it's a tool that just does a lot of different things. I still use ChatGPT. I still use Claude. I still use Perplexity, Gemini. I use all of them because each of them have their own specific nuance and things that it does really, really well. So my next episode, we're going to talk about Perplexity, and I hope to see you there. Again, if you're on YouTube, subscribe. Smash the like button, subscribe, like, follow, subscribe on all the other platforms. If you're on podcasts, subscribe definitely. Sorry, podcast. If you're on Apple, if you're on Apple or Spotify, definitely subscribe. And yes, please write in the comments if you want to see specific things. If you want to see specific episodes. By the way, I still have an episode that I'm going to be doing soon enough. I'm interviewing somebody, I think, at the end of this week. Yes, at the end of this week, I'm interviewing somebody. It's going to be really cool, who's in the industry, who works with a lot of companies building AI stuff and technology as well, just like I am. And we share very similar ideals. And so she's going to come on the show. It's going to be pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about that. Anyways, all right. Well, it's like 1:30 in the morning, and I now have to drive an hour home. So thank you very much for listening. I will check you guys out in the next podcast. Again, like, subscribe, comment, share. Don't forget to share. I never say that. Don't forget to share, because I think sharing is caring. All right. Later, guys. Bye.